supply management situation in order to make sure those costs don't overtake us. Imagine if the United States was experiencing the same kind of inflation that we're experiencing now. And we rely on the United States for this and for other things. Isn't that interesting how much hate the United States gets from everybody and their dog these days? It's super duper weird, if you ask me. CRISPRed pork on the shelves in Canada, but don't worry, it's not cloned pork or something. We're not supposed to think about it, I guess. They snuck this food technology in. It sounds like they're helping the pork, but I don't know how you can have long-term health impacts from something like this without having something like this in place for long-term and studying it in a controlled environment. So I don't think they've got that, but whatever. Who cares? It's probably, well, how could you trust what the Canadian government tells us after everything we've learned since 2020? Honestly, genuinely. Silver is pulling the, if there's a plan, even if it's horrible, at least there's a plan phase. So I saw a bank or somebody doing a breakdown saying, so the banks have $1.2 billion worth of silver on the books, and they can basically deliver 1 billion ounces, or they can deliver 1 billion of those paper assets, and that's bad. And that's just kind of be how it is. So who grabs the short straw and doesn't get the actual silver and instead gets the paper? We'll see. Who knows? I don't know. But it seems there's an interesting story all about silver, and the silver ties in. I was talking with Payman the other day. The silver ties in. I should put that link up. It was a really good interview. It was a lot of fun. I just liked chatting with Payman, and he's going to be on Speaking Moistly next week, so that's good as well. But we were talking about silver, and I said, I think it's all together in this whole big mess. Silver's an indication that the fiat currency that we've all been relying on is not as valuable as we once thought it was. So that's interesting. Nigel Farage made a deal with the powers that be, and now he's losing support. That's not shocking, I guess. I don't think it's very shocking. And extortion crime, a federal emergency in BC. They're saying, oh my gosh, we don't even know what to do. Everything is so bad. The extortion's so bad. Help us out. And I mean, this is a predictable outcome, don't you think? And they predicted this in the 1980s when a whole bunch of people said, yeah, let's make multiculturalism the order of the land and the law of the land and all this stuff. And well, this is how that's worked out. Not so good. So lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're talking about trade, and then we're going to talk about food. And so with trade, yesterday, I said, Besant was on the media talking about how Mark Carney called in and Trump put him on speakerphone, maybe not. And Besant was there when Carney apologized for everything he said in Davos and walked it all back, basically. And Trump said the same thing. And now Mark Carney's saying, no, I didn't. Nope, no, I didn't. So maybe you should put out your readout, sir. So it's not just one-sided, because now it looks like you're responding to it. Mark Carney doesn't tell the truth. Mark Carney is not somebody who I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's a truth teller through and through, shoots from the hip, straight guy, right? Nope. He will tell you his version of the truth every day of the week and twice on Sundays. And so it's one of those things where I don't believe a word he says. I would believe Besant and Trump over this guy because credibility and history matter. David Mulrooney says, Carney says almost nothing is normal in the United States and denies walking back the Davos speech, according to the Globe and Mail. The prime minister seems unaware that he's being trolled and that there are a lot of enthusiastic trolls in Washington, D.C. these days. Just stop talking. Yeah, so I hope this is a Trump troll. I hope it is. Because if it is, it's funny as heck. So I hope I'm not clipping. I hope it's not too loud. I think it's okay. Dr. Leslyn Lewis says, I was curious about whether the prime minister's Davos comment on a strategic economic relationship with China were fully compliant with the Canada obligations under the USMCA. Article 3210 requires advance notice to our North American partners before negotiating a free trade agreement with a non-market economy and outlines serious consequences if such an agreement proceeds. Reports that the Prime Minister later walked back or clarified those remarks suggest an awareness of these risks. Mishandling this could undermine USMCA, forcing Canada into a separate bilateral negotiations with the United States and Mexico. Canadians deserve clarity. Were the required notices given, and was the full impact on our North American trade relationship properly considered? Trade policy must be transparent, deliberate, and rooted in Canada's long-term national interest. Yeah, but it's none of those things, because if Mark Carney were careful with this and were acting in Canada's best interest and not, at the behest and whim of communist China, then Trump wouldn't have made the threats that he's made, right? He would have said, yeah, great deal, guys. But he didn't. He said, if Canada continues, they're going to get 100% tariffs. So that indicates Mark Carney didn't do his due diligence, despite him saying that, oh yeah, everything's weird, and We're going to continue doing this thing that destroys our economy. Here's Mel Jolie saying, until the Americans actually implement the 100% tariffs on us, we're going to pretend that they didn't say anything. We're going to listen to Trump and ignore him after we take notes of what he said. Here's Mel Jolie.
Trump threatened a 100% tariff threat, his most recent one. That was before, obviously, Carney and Trump spoke. How likely are you expecting the 100% tariff to come in? What is your government doing to prepare?
Well, that's a similar question that I've received in the past, and my answer is always pretty much the same, which is when President Trump speaks, we listen and we take good note. But at the same time, until actions are taken, we stand by our position. And our position right now is we had an important trip to China. We have a new strategic partnership with them. We're not seeking a free trade agreement. And at the same time, we'll continue to engage with the White House, and we believe in the strength of the USMCA. So that's what we'll do. We can do both things at the same time.
We believe in the strength of the USMCA. What happens when the USMCA doesn't exist anymore? Melissa says, remember when Carney did apologize to President Trump in secrecy? Trump shared that with reporters. Some denied the possibility of that. And a few days later, Carney admitted to it. I think I know who's telling the truth about Carney's potentially walking back the Davos comments. And this is back from November 1st, 2025. He says, I did walk back those comments. I did apologize to the president because that's the only real play, right? You're stuck and you got to move, right? Your piece has been challenged, so you move back. Aaron Gunn says it would be much easier to accept Mark Carney's current commentary and speeches at face value if they weren't also a total contradiction and repudiation of almost every political policy he's openly held and publicly articulated for the past 10 years. Have you read his book? It's a snorefest. But it gives you some insight. Mikey says, Culture Minister Mark Miller says the Online Streaming Act and Online News Act are now part of the trade negotiations with the United States, despite Prime Minister Carney's campaign pledged to keep culture off the negotiation table. Interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. The idea that these are part of the negotiation indicates maybe that C9, and Andrew Lawton said that C9 they're backing off C9. It should be in here somewhere, probably in the grab bag of governance. But Andrew Lawton said that their government is pausing the study of C9 in order to fix some other things in a different bill. And so all of this needs to die on paper, really, honestly. But looking at the United Kingdom, looking at Australia, looking at France, looking what they're doing and trying to get children off social media and all of that stuff, I'm not surprised. And I think they're going to ram this through. So be prepared. I've been saying that I'll just take my show private because an argument that I'm putting my content in public when it's behind a paywall would fall flat, I think. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'll do, but I don't have any intention of bowing to these tyrants personally. Juno News says government says it's ready for potential job losses. So they're asking, are you ready? They're asking Mel Jolie, are you ready for the USMCA to come in or the USMCA to be renegotiated? And what you're doing with China seems like a bad idea. And then Patty Haydu comes in and says, yeah, well, we've been shoring up EI and we've been shoring up all this. I don't want to listen to her because she's terrible. But she says, we prepared months ago, says Patty Haydu, and the preparation they did was shoring up EI and job loss bills to protect against the job losses that will come when the United States finally says, we've had enough of you fools in Canada. And is that day coming? I don't know. The day after they take over Greenland, maybe, right? Maybe when they can put their full attention. Panama, done. Greenland, mostly done. Who's next? Canada. Ryan says, need any more evidence that our Liberal government just keeps on making promises that never help or happen? This was Champagne 3 years ago in September 23. Canadians expect us to take decisive action, and this is actually going to help lower the price inflation that you see in Canada. Nope. And this government has survived many years after this, and really with no challenge, and the opposition loves them. The opposition is just on board. They're voting for the budget. Hiding Andrew Scheer to vote for the budget. Unbelievable stuff. When will the people understand these individuals are incapable of producing any results? Well, the results are that we're poorer and our money is valued less. That's the result that they're touting. The official record says Canada's grocery benefit is an admission of economic failure. It doesn't lower prices. It just hands your kids the debt. Ottawa, when a government has to roll out a permanent grocery benefit, it no longer it's no longer managing affordability. It's admitting the economy has stopped working. Rebranding and boosting the GST credit doesn't make food cheaper, raise productivity, or increase supply. It simply transfers cash after prices have already risen, locking higher costs in place. This policy doesn't fix why groceries are expensive. It doesn't reduce regulatory burdens, improve competition, expand domestic production, or raise real wages. Instead, it normalizes a system where Canadians need government assistance to afford basic necessities, while politicians call that progress. Worse, it's paid for with borrowed money. There's no offsetting spending cut, no new growth engine, and no plan to pay it down. Today's relief becomes tomorrow's taxes, higher debt service costs, and fewer opportunities for the next generation. Canadians are being told that they're getting help, when in reality they're being handed a bill and asked to pass it on to their children. If this policy actually worked, Canada wouldn't need it. The fact that it's being expanded tells you everything you need to know about the state of the economy. So Canada's grocery benefit is an admission of economic failure. They took a GST benefit that was in the hundreds of dollars and they moved it up into the thousands of dollars without addressing anything that's really going on with making food more expensive. I'm not surprised by any of this. I'm just disappointed, right? And it's one of those things where they know what they're doing causes a spiral, and what they're trying to do is cause that spiral. So they're going to continue, right? Great job, everyone. Put the pedal to the metal. Here is a BC Conservative leadership candidate talking about the food stuff, and he was a Save on Foods exec turned BC Conservative leader. And asked Darrell Jones what the government can do to lower grocery prices, and he says, actually, change the bad policies that are driving up the cost of producing food, and that makes sense to me. Here we go.
It's no secret that grocery prices are up in BC right now. So I'm wondering, what can the government do to bring those prices down?
Well, grocery prices are up. If you take a look at coffee, for number one, coffee is probably up the highest. I think it's up 42%. Well, why is coffee up? Well, two big reasons. One, the huge droughts they had in Brazil, where a whole bunch of the coffee's produced. Secondly, there's some secondary tariffs that impacted coffee. You take a look at beef prices. Beef prices are because it's way more difficult for farmers to produce products here because the government, this government, they've been part of higher costs for fertilizer, for feed. Fertilizer prices are up 100% in the last 5 years. The cost of fuel to take products from one place to another is up massively. Crime, they have to solve the crime. Crime in the stores today is 3 or 4 times what it was before. And with crime, when people steal things, then prices end up going up. So all of the issues that we have in pricing in the food business are the same reasons we have price increases everywhere, because the government is not doing the job that it needs to do to eliminate bureaucracy, eliminate red tape, and figure out how to make companies process and do their work as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And that's how you lower prices for everybody.
Yep. Unfortunately, we're not doing any of that. That's not in the plan. And the plan is to take tax dollars and give those tax dollars to other people. So take from the rich and give to the poor, but not like Robin Hood, like a cracked version of Robin Hood that makes sure the prices stay high forever. Here is Juno News again, and this is Polyev calling out Carney for hiding the grocery prices. Oh man, I thought this was a 30-second clip that was already pre-cut. We'll listen to about a minute. Here we go. I don't know that we're going to get to the actual call out, but here, probably some of it. Here we go.
Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister held a photo op at a grocery store in front of food, but there was just one thing missing. The price tags. He had ordered his PMO staff to literally show up early at the grocery store and remove the price tags. They're back up today. We went and checked, and they're really high. In fact, grocery prices are rising faster in Canada than in any other G7 country, twice as fast as in the States, twice as fast as when he took office. Mr. Speaker, the hidden costs that this Prime Minister imposes on inflation will not go away because he tries to take down the price tag. Why won't he take down the price?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yep. It is. Well, Carney talks about. Here, listen.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, before I had lunch with the Premier of Ontario, I had a long meeting with the Premier of Ontario. I would like to introduce the Leader of the Opposition to the Premier of Ontario so we can learn something about cooperation, cooperation on housing, cooperation on building the best auto sector in the world, cooperation on good jobs for Ontarians and Canadians, cooperation on rising wages, which have risen faster than inflation every single month of the year.
Pivot. He doesn't talk about the problem. He talks about what he wants to talk about, which is what the Liberals always do. It's no surprise at all. CBC Watcher is pointing out that the prices of what they're just announcing goes against all of the things that Carney said during his campaign. And CBC Watcher says, Vasi Coppola says, what you announced yesterday is more than $11 billion of additional government spend. Nobody from your government has said how you will pay for it. I imagine because you're not introducing a new tax or something to that effect, or described other cuts elsewhere, that it will come from additional borrowing. That runs counter to what Mr. Carney said during the election campaign, when you yourself have said on many instances since then. And what you yourself have said. How are we to infer from that anything other than this is about policies and the possibility of an election? McKinnon goes to the Help the Children infomercial mode, cites food inflation where Canada has the highest in the G7. Kudos to Vasi for asking. Who will she have on to rebut? The whole point, like if the price of food is inflating to a degree where you cannot handle it, where your economy is buckling under the pressure, then you should change your bad policies that are driving it. And instead, they're not doing that. They're solving a problem in a way that will create another problem shortly. They're also phasing out beef, it seems like. Health Canada and pork, because who wants to eat pork like this? Food professor says Health Canada has now decided that selling unlabeled gene-edited pork in Canada is acceptable. What do you think? The food professor also says gene-edited pigs considered safe to eat by Health Canada will be available soon in Canadian grocery stores. Canada's Health Canada says gene-edited pigs resistant to major swine virus are safe to eat and as nutritious as regular pork, and they won't require special labeling. These pigs were edited using CRISPR to resist porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus, a disease that causes big losses for farmers. Regulators also found no health or safety concerns for humans or animals. How can they, like they said that about the COVID vaccines too, right? Like they don't have any credibility in my opinion. Again, the food professor is quoting his article, and it says, once again, without public notice or meaningful explanation, Health Canada has cleared a food technology that remains poorly understood by consumers. In recent days, the agency approved the sale of gene-edited pork in Canada without any labeling requirements. Link to the article below. So this makes me more angry than the African gold mine sold by the Canadian company, but people don't talk about this kind of stuff, which is weird. Is it boring? Maybe it's boring. Food professor again says University of Montreal Engineering School Polytechnique removes beef from cafeteria menus to cut emissions. It's the first post-secondary institution in North America to stop offering students beef. And so they're phasing beef out in order to save the planet, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Holly Doan says failed $2 billion trees program cost $487 million, including $44 million in administrative costs, according to the NRCan. I don't know what that is. Hold on. We'll find out together. Natural Resources Canada. Program fell 89% short of planting target of trees. So yeah, no trees got planted, and it cost $500 million bucks. Lucky us. Lucky us. Franco says the federal government will once again hike alcohol taxes on April 1st, costing taxpayers about $41 million bucks. And it's an undemocratic tax grab. They will make money of your money without a vote in Parliament, or they will take more of your money without a vote in Parliament. And so, yes, that's what's going on there. And pretty wild, pretty wild stuff. And the whole, it's Sharia law by another way. It is a backdoor of people not drinking anymore, and it's interesting. I think that alcohol is probably bad for you over the long run. Like if you drink all the time, that's probably bad. I used to drink all the time, and it's bad. It was bad for me. So I actively tried to stop drinking, and I have succeeded in that. But my personal history with alcohol aside, it's interesting that society is drinking much less as well. And people have pointed out when you import a whole bunch of people who don't drink, Muslims, then the drinking in society goes down. So restaurants are suffering because of it too as well. I said two as well. Darn. Jeffrey Rath says fire marshal said 4,690 people were at capacity at the citizens at the Alberta separatist rally in Calgary last night. I think, or the January 26th. Alberta Separation says citizen engagement at this level is culturally Alberta. And yeah, I think so. So that's interesting to me. And good for them. I hope they're not going to get screwed. I think they're going to get screwed. Jeffrey Rath again is responding to Nenshi. Apparently Nenshi is encouraging United Conservative Party MLAs to sign his Forever Canada pledge, and Rath is calling it the Forever Communist Pledge. My response to Nenshi's idea that the UCP MLAs should sign his Forever Communist Pledge: let's face it, if Nenshi thinks independence is a bad idea, it must be an awesome idea. Nenshi has never been right about anything, and I think that's absolutely true. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye to the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. We've got lots more in the show today. It would be very interesting. Including silver, USA, fraud, a whole bunch of other stuff. Grab bag of